Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. We got another cooking show for you today. Today we're making Michigan sauce. If you're not from Northern New York, you may not have heard of it, but if you are, you have. It is a tomatoey, hamburgery type of sauce that you make to go on top of hot dogs with onions and all kinds of good stuff. So that's what we're going to make today. If you're interested in the recipe, you can search online for Grandma Slattery's Michigan sauce. I don't know who she was, but she makes a great sauce. So anyway, I always find my recipes online, just kind of tooling around, or if it's summertime, I want just a different type of side salad or whatever. I've found some great ones online. The internet's awesome. So let's talk about the Michigan sauce. When you see a Michigan sauce here, usually you find that it's a very fine, hamburger in it. And people sometimes have said, well, how do you get the hamburger to be so fine and stuff? Because usually when you think of cooking hamburger into something like, maybe you're making, I don't know, say, what would be an example? Shepherd's pie or a hamburger soup, or, where hamburger's in it. Usually you put onions and garlic and a little bit of oil and you cook it up in the pan, and the hamburger cooks about like it would when it comes out of the grinder. So it's like long strings of it, and you chop it up and things like that. That doesn't get it small enough or fine enough for a Michigan sauce. So with a Michigan sauce, you do all the tomatoes and seasonings and all that first, and then you add the raw meat. And the acid in the tomatoes and the lemon juice, I think it has in it, is what actually breaks down the hamburger so that it's a nice fine texture. So it's actually the acids that break it down fine, not chopping it real fine and stuff like that. The acid actually breaks down the connecting tissues, I guess you would call it, in the hamburger, and that's what helps make it really fine. So it ends up simmering for about a half an hour, and that kind of lets that process take place. So anyway, we're going to start with putting all the tomatoey part together, and hopefully by then Deb will be back with a hamburger. I got some onions ready to chop. We're going to get the onions chopped, and we're going to get all of the ingredients and stuff ready so that before we turn the stove on and start to cook, we don't want things to overcook. So I want to have all of the tomato paste and the tomato sauce and all the other ingredients ready to dump in before we start cooking the onions. So it's better to do a little prep ahead of time. I also have my cookbook ready to go so I don't have to touch it while I'm cooking, because you know how your hands can get pretty dirty. So we are going to start the prep work. Okay, we're going to start putting the wet ingredients, spices together. We're going to start with 4 tablespoons of white vinegar. So I'm going to do that the easy way. 4 tablespoons is 1/4 of a cup. There's the white vinegar. We're doing a double batch. 4 tablespoons of brown sugar. I'm going to get a different 1/4 cup so I don't get vinegar in my brown sugar. I keep my brown sugar in a Ziploc type container. I won't say Tupperware because it's not Tupperware, it's generic ware probably. So there's our brown sugar. I'm also moving those out of the way as I do them. 6 tablespoons of lemon juice. That's some of what's going to give it the spice. So 6 tablespoons is going to be 1/4 cup and 2 tablespoons. If you're following my math real quick. If I'm wrong, let me know. Oh, wait a minute. I gotta do the 2 tablespoons. You can't make it up. I don't think I did them. Okay. Something like this, it's approximate. It doesn't have to be down to the drop. Okay, so that's the lemon juice. We're gonna do a tablespoon of prepared mustard. I like to use a spicy brown mustard, just because. All right, so there's the mustard. 6 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. Worcester sauce, that's going to use for dry. Let's do it with this one. This just helps give it a little bit of depth of flavor, you know, all these different things. Oops. And now 2 of these. And that'll be 6 tablespoons. So what I'm mixing here is going to go in the pan with the tomato paste and the tomato sauce. And ketchup, we're going to use 2 cups. Again, we're doing a double batch, so that's part of why we're doing that. Whoop. We're having a barbecue tomorrow, so that's why we're... Ooh, I apologize. Ooh, I apologize. So we're having a barbecue tomorrow, so that's why I'm doing a double batch. We're also going to have Michigans for dinner tonight. So we're doing 2 cups. And there's 1. And I'm sure you could not use ketchup and you could, you know, readjust to use real tomatoes the whole way, but everybody has ketchup. And then you'd have to factor for the amount of sugar in here that's also lending to the flavor. So it's just as easy to use prepared ketchup, prepared mustard, even though if you wanted, I suppose you could make your own and you could do it 100%, you know, not prepared food. But doing this is a lot more cooking than a lot of people do, so we're good. Okay, and then it'll be the 16 ounces of tomato sauce. And of course they come in 15-ounce cans, whatever. And then we're going to do 2 small cans of tomato paste. And all of this will go together after we're going to saute the onions. So we'll saute the onions in a little bit of butter, and then we'll add all of the prepared seasoning and our tomato products, and let that kind of percolate a little bit and bubble. And then when it begins to simmer and warm up, then we're going to add the hamburger into that. So let's do that next. I also want to take this mixture and give it a little whisk just to put it together. So I have a little whisk, so we can give it a little whisk. I love that joke. The other important thing to notice is I'm cleaning up as I go, so that when we're done cooking, we won't have a mess. Okay, we are warming up our pan to get ready to saute the onions. Here's my flame. I don't want it on too high because we don't want to do them too quick. I'm going to put in about 2 tablespoons of butter. I usually have non-salted butter in the fridge. It goes with a lot of cooking recipes. Ask for no salt added butter. We get enough salt in our diets anyway. So we're going to let that butter do its thing, melt a little bit. You hear some noise in the background. This is a working kitchen, so the washer and dryer are doing their business. Got a non-stick pan. I like to use a high-sided pan just to, whenever I'm working with something with tomato paste, because we don't want it splashing around a whole lot. So we're just going to melt the butter, and then we're going to throw in the onions. Saute them until they're soft. So there, our butter is just about done. Let's see if we can get you a better view here. There you go. I think that's a little better. I just don't want to lose my phone into the, yeah. I think that'll work. The butter's just about melted. And if you didn't want to use butter, you could use an olive oil or something like that. When you're using a non-stick pan, you want to use wooden or non-stick cooking utensils, because a metal utensil will do what's happening to ours, is it'll scrape out the Teflon or whatever it is in the bottom. Yeah, turn that up a little bit, get those going. The other thing I like to do is leave something like this here for the utensils. So if I don't have a need for a bowl, then what I'll do is I'll just get like a dinner plate or like a sandwich plate I'll put something like this here just to help keep the mess down. Because like I said, if you clean while you go, you will have less to do when you're done, and then you won't have to worry about a terrible kitchen. So what I do is I make sure the dishes are ready, and then can you see over there? That's where the dishes are going, right in the sink. Come back over here. So we can start to hear them sizzle a little bit. So that's good. Go to work, baby. Those are coming along good. You may have noticed that I used a little chopping machine to cut up the onions. That's actually a Pampered Chef product. Where you put it in, it's kind of like almost like a manual food processor with a blade that goes around. I've also got a different one. Well, this one isn't it, but it's a generic. And that's a chopper as well. But like I said, this one's a generic. The one that we have from Pampered Chef is pretty durable. But that takes more of a chop up and down rather than this one that just puts it in and kind of food processes around in a circle. Those are about done, so we're going to go ahead and add in our liquid. Into this container I added the tomato sauce and tomato paste, so in one container, and then that has all of our other ingredients that we put in as well. So we're going to combine this, especially as the tomato paste kind of heats up. It'll start to mix with everything a little bit better. And what you're guessing I'm doing is right, is I'm rinsing out and putting that container in the sink. So we got a good start on cleanup. There. So I'm going to turn that down a little bit. We don't need quite as much heat on that. Like I said, that's all got to warm up. And when it starts to steam and bubble a little bit is when we will add the hamburger. Okay, it's starting to bubble a little bit, so we just got to keep an eye on it a little bit. Again, we just don't want it splashing all over like it's starting to do, but that is the nature of the beast. Okay, so our tomatoes still warming up, and we've got the hamburger here ready to go. So what I wanted to show you here is, you see the way it comes through the hamburger grinder. All right, if we cook the hamburger first, this is about how it's going to come out, just a little smaller. That's too thick for what we want. We want it really fine, and that's why we put it in the tomato mixture, and then the acids will break this down and make it a lot finer. And that's splattering and just hit me in the head. Damn. Okay, in goes the beef. We're just going to push this down, break it up a little bit, make sure it's all mixed, broken up as much as we can, and then let the tomatoes and all the seasonings go to work. Okay, that is mixing up pretty well. The hamburger's still got a little bit more breaking down to do, but you can see it's starting to get mixed together, and that will get finer and finer over time. We're going to simmer that for about 20 minutes to a half an hour. That's coming along good. You see the meat starting to break down a little bit more. Another 20 minutes. We'll see how that's looking. We'll keep stirring as it goes. Okay, so we're just about done cooking. A few important things to know, some of the lingo. So when you go somewhere and order in Michigan, you can order it with or buried. With is with onions. Buried is with onions but below the sauce. Important to know. different places have different flavor sauce. Everybody's kind of got their unique recipe. Some are more tomatoey, some are more sweet like a ketchup, some are more almost more dry, more gritty feeling, where there's probably less of the maybe ketchup or tomato sauce, so that it's not as kind of runny as some are when they start. So there's, gosh, I can think of 4 or 5 different places right around the Plattsburgh area alone that sell Michigans with different sauces. Like I said, they're all unique. Let's take a look at what we got here. So the timer's done, the stove is off, the counters are clean. Let it cool down a little bit, and we're gonna have a Michigan. Anyway, thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel. See you again.